Thanks, Stephen. Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Mindy, and Stephen, thank you so much for that great introduction. So the session today is billed as a boot camp. Is there anybody here who is ex-military or been in the military? Okay, so boot camp is rough. Even if you've not been through boot camp, there's usually a lot of information thrown at you. You learn by doing and applying, and that's really what I'm hoping to present to you today, right? So I'm really hoping for some interaction. Feel free to provide feedback as I go throughout the presentation. And there will be a lot of information, but you can do it, okay? So let's jump into content marketing. So there's already been a great introduction about me. I'm not gonna go too much into all of this stuff. But item number 3 is that I'm a yoga and mindfulness advocate in addition to being in B2B marketing. So we're all coming from different places. We've had snacks or went to the restroom or just drove in. So I would like to try and get all of us on the same, in the same space in terms of being able to absorb all of this information. So if you're comfortable doing so, if you'd stand up with me and we'll just take a breath together. I know it's a little unorthodox, but I appreciate your participation. So feeling the ground beneath you, feel the foundation of all of the knowledge and experience that you've got up to this point, where you even know what marketing is or what content marketing is or B2B is. And then we'll take a deep breath, and you can reach up. And then as you exhale, kind of let your hands float down in front of you. 2 more times, inhale here. And you can let out a sigh of your mouth if that feels good. Last time, inhaling here. And exhale. All right, thank you so much for participating with me. Hopefully that was helpful to kind of ground us and get us ready for the next step, because we're jumping in. 3 main takeaways that I'm hoping you get from spending the next hour with me. The first one is the ACT framework, stands for audience, context, and time. And that's basically how I approach content marketing. That's how I've helped my clients approach content marketing. And we'll go through some of those details later. The second takeaway is how to align content marketing to your business goals so that you actually achieve them and so that you win, instead of feeling like you're in this constant churn of pushing out content and not seeing ROI, not seeing any type of results, and then just kind of hoping the universe gives you the business that you need or the wins that you want. The third thing is how to repurpose content and how important it is that you repurpose content, okay? So let's start off with content marketing. Actually, let's start off with B2B, right? So there are a lot of acronyms thrown about. B2B means business to business. So there's a lot of content creation, or there are a lot of guides on content creation for B2C marketing, consumers like us, right? Mostly focused around social media. But B2B is a slightly different beast. And we're all coming from different industries and different parts in our career, so I just want to kind of get a feeling of who's in the crowd. So who here, just by a show of hands, is really familiar with content marketing? You're a content marketing guru, and you're really here to see if I know what I'm talking about. Okay, excellent. I'll check in with you later if I'm saying the right things. Okay, who here has dabbled a little bit in B2B content marketing? You've created maybe a blog or an infographic, and you're here to kind of get some new perspectives and new approaches. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so the last one is you've heard of content marketing, you know it's cool, you want to do it, no idea where to start, because when you Google content marketing, there are 50 bajillion different results. And you're just hoping that I can give you one thing to get you started tomorrow. Who is there? All right, cool. Thank you so much for sharing. And for being vulnerable with me, right? So at this point, I'm going to be going through, again, a lot of information. But if you have a device, or if you're taking notes, if you'd please write down or think of one thing you hope to learn from this session, whatever that is, right? I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And the reason why is because, one, I want to make sure that you get something out of this session, and 2, if I don't cover it, that can be your first question during the Q&A session later. Okay, so I'll just give you 3 seconds to kind of write down what you hope to get from this session. Awesome. All right, thank you very much. So let's jump in. Content marketing is basically the art of using content to communicate with your audience, to build brand awareness and affinity, and basically to develop lead and sales so that you can grow your business, right? The point of content marketing is to communicate, inform, and understanding with your audience, which are your potential buyers. So we know what it is, now we want to know why. Why do it? Beyond the fact that it's like interesting or exciting, or that's a buzzword that you hear a lot about, right? This is a pie chart from a report done by Content Marketing Institute, and they basically interviewed a bunch of different B2B content marketers, and 71% of them said that content marketing continues to be more important in the past year. Now, if you're here in this room, I'm just going to make assumptions that you're part of the 71% because you see some sort of importance in it and you want to learn more about it, right? So the reason why we do content marketing is because it works. It works, all right? Research shows that content marketing generates 3 times more leads and costs 62% less than traditional marketing, right? Traditional marketing will always have its place. I'm not saying digital is the only way to go and offline is a dinosaur, but this specific strategy and this specific channel works, right? And the interesting thing about it is you're already doing it. So who here has crafted an email to explain a product or solution or service that your business or startup is providing? Okay, very good. You created content, right? The thing about it is, if every time someone sends you an email and says, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about your product or solution? And you sit down and you create an email and you send it out. And then 2 months later, somebody asks you the same question, and then you go back and you find that email and then you copy and paste it, right? But what if you made that content, if it's a really generic, general, basic information question, what if you made that available to be found on other channels and platforms? So now you don't have to send that email, search for it, copy, paste, send it back. How do you make that content accessible, right? So the thing with content marketing, it also communicates this perception that you are the expert, right? So when you create quality content, you also exude authority. And they think that your business is the expert on what it is and can provide them with the solution, okay? So we know it works. We know what it is. We know it works, so let's get creating, right? Let's do it right now. Except Grumpy Cat says no. All right, Grumpy Cat says, let's pause, take a step back, because I just said that you are already creating content. So before making more, let's see what we have, right? So my recommendation is to do a content audit before you start jumping and creating content, no matter how excited you are, right? So the first thing you do is make a list of everything. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. It doesn't have to be in Excel. You could literally just start writing it in a notebook, right? But write down everything you've created, big and small, whether it's significant or not. Let's say your B2B startup is for a specific type of product, and you made a sketch on the back of a napkin to explain that concept to someone in a bar. That's content. Don't throw that napkin away, because that came from your brain. And yeah, you can refine it, or you can make some sort of cool, maybe AI could do it, right? Some sort of cool video animation of the drawing on a napkin and then push it out to your audience, right? So let's just take inventory of what you have, organize it, analyze it, and then categorize it, right? How many napkin sketches have you made? How many to-do lists have you made? How many checklists? How many infographics? How many slide decks? If you're presenting to customers or potential customers in meetings, how many of those have you created? Let's gather all of that, right? And then take action. Gathering and taking inventory is really important, but then what do you do with it? This sketch on a napkin, yes or no? Cool or not? Keep or remove? Or do you have 3 sketches that you can combine together to make an infographic, right? So at that point, deciding what each piece of content means to you in terms of value, and then deciding what to do with it. So this is the first QR code of my presentation. Basically, I know a lot of people like to take pictures throughout presentations, or you're trying to like scribble down stuff that I'm saying. But throughout this presentation, I've basically peppered some of these QR codes that you can scan and just save to your phone. And if you miss it at the very end, we'll give you another opportunity to do that, right? So with the content audit, I do believe in repurposing content and using what's already available to you. You don't have to invent the wheel. WordStream has a template in a Google Sheet that has a guide of how to do a content audit, and it has all of these cells or sheets, and it has a how-to guide. So basically, just go to that QR code, start plugging stuff in, and start doing a content audit, right? So now you know what you have. You've taken stock of all of your content we want to create. So I think that lady mentioned something about an ACT framework, right? And we're going to jump straight into that. Content marketing is about creating content that tell interesting stories to the right people at the right time, all right? So audience, starting with the who's going to be consuming your information. Context, what is the right circumstance for that person to consume that information? And then time, to be relevant. This is the framework that I've used at companies from publicly traded companies all the way down to small businesses that have 1 to 10 employees. It's not the only way. Again, you can Google and find a different way that might work for you, but this is a way that's worked for me. And it's been a strategic, sustainable, and scalable way of approaching content marketing so you can avoid burnout and, again, that hamster wheel of, I gotta make content, what do? I gotta make content, right? Looking at audience. There are 3 main lenses to look through when we're thinking about audience. The first one is the buyer persona. If you're in business development or worked at a B2B company in marketing, you've probably heard of the creation of this, it's like a fictional representation of your ideal client or your ideal customer, right? And the reason why we do that is because beyond collecting demographic information like age and title and size of company, you're also trying to understand that individual. Because the reality of it is you are selling to a human on the other end of it, right? Somebody's going to be making that purchasing decision. They'll be using technology to evaluate you, but they're still going to make that final decision. And so something that Brian mentioned earlier about relationship management, that's really what B2B business development is about. We'll also look at behaviors, right? So researching how buyers behave in different industries. For instance, a CFO of, or let's say a CTO, a Chief Technology Officer of a manufacturing company is going to consume and look at content differently than, let's say, a Chief Technology Officer of Google, a huge tech company, right? Their expectations, their understanding, it's going to be different. Now, I'm not saying create pieces of content for everyone, but I am saying that you have to narrow down, or it's advised that you narrow down your niche and your audience for who's actually going to be consuming it. Lastly, we'll look at channels. So there are a billion different channels, digital or otherwise, and different types of content as well. So we'll dig a little bit more into that. Buyer persona. This QR code goes to a really cool tool by HubSpot. So they have a make a persona tool. It used to be a PDF, and then, no, it was an Excel sheet, and then it was a PDF that you could print out or whatever, and now they've made it into a web app. So it's a great experience, and I recommend you just kind of clicking around in it. It's fun. So we talked a little bit about the representation of your ideal customer. So you can base this on market research that you'll be doing, but also analyzing data of your existing customers, right? So as a startup, you have if you have an existing pool of clients or customers already, take a look and analyze their behaviors, especially the ones that you want more of, right? Really study them and figure out what they want, what they're looking for, and how you can bridge the gap between, hey, I just heard about your startup, and hey, I want to sign a contract with you, or I want your solution, right? So again, a gazillion templates online, but this is the one I recommend. This is a general preview of what it looks like. So it has little checkbox thingies, you fill in the blanks, and then it spits out a buyer persona that you can just download. So it doesn't have to be super complicated. All right, we talked a little bit about behaviors and how 3 people will not consume the same content the same way, right? So depending on what your startup is, you may be targeting a specific industry, let's say, but in that industry, let's say you're targeting the manufacturing industry. The small business owner who's buying fasteners and screws in that manufacturing industry is going to consume content, look for content, be on different channels than the facilities manager that wants to buy hand soap for the building. It's also going to be different from the chief technology officer that's looking to buy an ERP system, right? An ERP system is huge. That's probably one of the biggest decisions that a CTO makes, because that software will touch basically all parts of operations of a company, right? So the amount of time that they're willing to spend on your content, the amount of content they're going to consume, all of that is different, right? So that's really where, if you Google what types of content do I need to put out for this industry, you're always going to get best practices, but you're going to know best really what you need to do and how much of it you need to do. These are some of the channels that are available, right? Because thinking about it like TV, where you used to have like Nickelodeon and HGTV and Discovery Channel. So some of these channels cost money to be on. Some of them are free, right? So who here is familiar with the community platform called Stack Overflow? Okay, so that means you looked up some sort of question related to programming, right? Some sort of programming language. And it's basically a platform where developers go to learn programming language, all right? That doesn't cost money to be on, but if you're a startup and you are the CEO, you are business development, you are janitor, you are whatever, the one-person show, and you're selling some sort of programming or developing related software, be at Stack Overflow, because there are people there asking questions, telling you what their pain points are. And if you have the solution for that, yeah, you can't be over promotional and be like, buy this thing, I'm the best. But if you can provide some sort of solution, connect with that person one-on-one, that person may be a CEO of a huge company. That could be your $5 million contract, could be your big break to grow your startup, right? So the reason why I bring this up is basically be creative in searching out channels and meet people where they are, right? Everybody wants to be on TikTok. TikTok is real cool. It's super entertaining. But if you are a B2B business, is a CEO, a VP, a purchasing manager going to make a buying decision based on something they saw on TikTok? And how much time is it going to take for you to make a TikTok video for it to get a bunch of likes, but not generate actual leads and actual income at the end of it, right? Does it feed your bottom line? So let's talk a little bit about types of content. This is a whole rabbit hole that if we fall down, we will never come back out, okay? But I just wanted to list some general things. So in 3 minutes when I sat down to do this presentation, I just typed out all of these different pieces of content that I've had a hand in creating at different companies for clients or for myself, right? And also remember this tree. I really like this tree. It looks really sturdy, and it will be significant later on. But so this is a breakdown of different kinds of content, right? One of the sections over on the left with combos interactive, the reason why that is there is because, let's say, for instance, website pages, any website contains basically an amalgamation of all of these different things, right? So thinking about how when you create different pieces of content, how it combines and come together, but also how can you dismantle it and how can you deconstruct it into different pieces of content to get more mileage out of it. Something that I wanted to point out under audio is voicemails, because I hear a lot of B2B companies say, okay, I don't need to do audio, I don't need to do a podcast, because people are listening to true crime stuff anyways, and they don't want to listen to what I have to say, right? But if you have a business development team, and if they're calling anyone, They're leaving voicemails. Do you know what they're saying on those voicemails? Maybe you have some sort of training material or you have some sort of script, but what if you're in a specific growth stage in your startup and you're hyper-focused or hyper-targeting on a specific feature or industry? Are you, to a certain extent, making sure that your business development team is putting out there your one main message that you want to get across, right? So content creation doesn't have to be flashy to be consumed by the person who's actually going to buy the product, but how can you support your business development and your sales so that they can close that deal later on down the funnel? Something I also want to talk about is you don't always have to be the person creating the content, right? So this is a newsletter called The Skim. It comes out daily. It has 7 million subscribers. And all they do is aggregate content and link to all the other pieces of content that have already been created. So sometimes you can act as the conduit between a potential customer who may be unaware or still in the info gathering stage. You can connect them to other pieces of content or other pieces of information that you have, let me try this again. Using your authority as an expert, you can be the conduit between the potential buyer and the information that they need. So you don't necessarily have to create or invent the wheel. If the wheel already exists, you can kind of help and show the potential buyer that you know what you're talking about. You may not do this exact thing, but you are aware of other pain points that they may have, right? So that helps with empathy, that helps with building your authority, and for the potential buyer to see you as someone who is an expert in this industry. So the thing I also get a lot of questions about is gated content, all right? People who create B2B content always want to catch that conversion. They're interested in the attribution. I want to know that this person looked at this white paper and then they spent $1 million with me or $200 with me, right? And so the question becomes, how much do we give away for free? How much do we put behind a form so that you get a name and an email address before you exchange information and give that away, right? That's a great question, and I would say that it depends on context, which is the next part of what we're going to be talking about. So what is context? It's basically the circumstances that create the setting for an idea to be fully understood and assessed. Do we know who this is? It's Barbie, right? Okay, who here has seen the movie Barbie? Okay, keep your hands up. Who here has heard of Barbie in the past 2 months? Awesome, thank you. That's all of us, right? So the reason why I bring Barbie up during context is kind of similar to the TikTok thing, right? Barbie is hot. Everybody was riding that wave during those 2 months. Literally, brands that didn't have anything to do with pink were all of a sudden pink. There were just pink stuff everywhere. That might have been fun. It might have gotten some awareness, but did it actually have any ROI? All of that effort put into creating Barbie-related content for B2B specific companies. Do we have any proof that that actually affected the bottom line, right? So while professional doesn't have to be boring, and my recommendation is to create interesting content because, again, humans are going to be consuming it. The important thing with B2B content marketing, the takeaway from today, is that it needs to be useful to the person consuming it, the person you're selling to. It needs to be something that will help them get more information and be better at their job so they look like rock stars. And so the next thing we'll go through is talking about aligning content creation with your business goals using the marketing funnel. All right, here's another QR code. It goes to Moz. Moz is an SEO tool, and they have a great content marketing blog as well. And it's a guide to how to create content following all of these different levels of the buying funnel. So if you've been in business development or if you've been in any type of B2B setting, you may be familiar with this or you may have seen this before, right? So the first two things up here, the first two levels are the top of the funnel, and some people will say this are where cold leads live. The middle of the funnel are consideration and intent. That's when a lead starts to feel or starts to show some sort of interest in your product or your solution or your company, and that's also where you start to put a face and a name to a person. The bottom of the funnel, that's usually where sales comes in, and that's when it's a hot lead and you're either going to make or lose that sale, right? So we'll go through all of this, and if you're taking notes or you're typing on your device, this is the part where we do, okay? So this is where I encourage you to think about your startup and what you can actually do and apply with what we're going through right here. All right, so starting with awareness, right? So your audience is a human. We're hoping it's a human, okay? We're hoping it's not bots on your website. The behavior is they're searching for basic information, and the channels that they're going to use are probably going to be free and easily accessible to them. The pain point at this stage is that they don't know what's available, right? So who here owns a startup? Yeah? Okay, what's your startup? Somebody want to shout at me? You're building an app? Okay, what's the app do? Awesome. Okay, this is kind of meta right now because it's content creation for content creation. Okay, so you're building an app to help content creators monetize their content. And they don't know that you exist. But you want them to know, right? So you're trying to attract potential leads to your brand and your offerings. So some of that tactics there are using something called evergreen content. Evergreen means general knowledge, basic information that's not going to be outdated. I know in digital marketing that it's kind of impossible to do because it's going to be outdated a year from now, especially with AI and machine learning and all that stuff, right? But it will last longer than 6 months is what I'm going with evergreen content, all right? So that can be, let's say, oh, I didn't get your name back there. Tino? Okay, thanks, Tino. All right, so Tino may create content that says, what is content creation for B2C? How do you monetize it? What are options for monetizing it? One of the options is you, right? So if you have something like that you can implement right now for your startup, I'll give you 2 seconds, 3 seconds to kind of write down what that is. And then we'll move on to interest. So at this point, this person is a potential lead. They are a content creator, okay? You know they could use your app, right? They could benefit from it. So they're looking for more specific information related to their needs, right? Maybe they're specifically a video content creator, or they're specifically a writer. These are some of the channels that they're going to go through. Again, industry and community platforms come up, so there are a lot of communities on LinkedIn where people will go and share information. So go listen in. You don't necessarily have to participate or provide information, but just listen in and see what's being talked about, right? And at this point, they're exploring potential solutions to their problem. They're not necessarily looking for Tino's app, but they know they need an app to help them monetize their content. So at this point, your tactic is to use educational content. Explain to them how other people are monetizing content, how apps are helping content creators to build businesses and to build more startups, right? Consideration. This is the part where they're a cold lead, and the main tactic here is using gated content. Because you want to capture this person. At this point, they've shown a lot of interest, they're hanging out on your website, they're looking at you and other competitors. You want to reach out and contact them first, right? So at this point, lead acquisition is really important because you're educating the potential customers, and in exchange for all of that information, you're just asking for some contact information in return. Intent. This person says, hey, Tino, that app is fire. I want to learn more about it. If it costs $5 million, I can't do it because I'm a startup too. But if it's $20 a month, $50 a month, maybe I can do something, right? So this is where you differentiate your brand and build a relationship with the customer, or the potential customer or the potential client, right? At this part, real-world examples carry a lot of weight because they're already showing that interest and that intent, and they want to know that it works. They don't want to talk to you and then realize, hey, actually, I don't even know what app development is. I just thought it's a cool idea, right? So real-world examples in terms of testimonials, in terms of case studies, white papers, all of that is where it comes into play. Now, I know that all sounds like a lot of work, but even a testimonial, a short something that's connected to a previous client or a partner can be really helpful in this instance. Evaluation. This is a high-pressure situation, right? Because they're a hot lead. You know that they want your product or your solution. If it's a company, let's say, for instance, you're talking with the chief technology officer. Well, let's say it's a two-person company, okay? One person makes the decisions on that, and one person actually creates the content. So your daily users are going to be people that are actually going to be using that app every day, right? And they're preparing to make that purchasing decision. They want to know that this app is actually right for them. This is where you're going to start converting to a sales qualified lead, and this is where you're preparing to close that deal, right? So something that's really popular now and that you can use that Google Duet or other AI with is customizing that content, right? Maybe putting in keywords from previous conversations with this person, keywords about a pain point that may be affecting that particular industry. Okay, purchase. Woohoo! You win. You got the sale, you sold the app, you've got a new subscriber, whatever it is, and you want this client to be committed to your brand, and you want them to continue to be hopeful that you will meet expectations and then meet them, right? So some of the tactics here are providing exclusive content. So if you're a subscriber of specific SaaS companies, they usually have some sort of community that you can log into, and it gives you knowledge articles, tips and tricks, advice, stuff like that. If you are building something like an app, you're likely going to have some sort of onboarding or training materials that you're providing the client once they purchase, right? So providing that all of that to them in the beginning, they may lose it 6 months down the road, but the answer to their questions may be in there. So making it available in exclusive content, even if it's just on your Google Drive so you can email it to them when they ask you a question, that makes things easier for you and it makes it more efficient. So we've talked a lot, we've gone through all of that with the marketing funnels. Something that I also want to bring up is the levels of complexity for the pieces of content that you're creating, right? So earlier, Stephen brought up the uncanny valley. So this is another, this is Moravec's paradox, and it has to do with AI and robots. So basically, Moravec's paradox means that there are certain things that are impossible for robots or AI or machine learning to do, but they're super simple for humans. And vice versa. There are some things that are impossible for human brains to do that are super easy for AI to do, right? And so the reason why I bring this up, and this is a really cool video if you want to watch it later, is going back to the example of the chief technology officer at a small manufacturing company or at Google. The levels of complexity of what you're trying to sell them is going to be different. And that's where customized content is important. And that's where anticipating expectations and having the right questions and providing relevant information is important, right? So before we move to the last part of the framework, which is time, I just want to check in. Are y'all doing okay? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Is anyone asleep? I mean, that's cool if you need to take a nap. But it's a lot of information, and I appreciate you sticking with me, all right? But just wanted to take a quick break here, and we'll jump into time. So the last part of the framework is time. And the power of storytelling in B2B comes with anticipating those expectations and questions and then providing that information, right? So the 3 things in terms of something applicable related to time is creating a content calendar, all right? I don't know about you, but my Google Calendar basically rules my life. Everything is on it. I need to know where I am, what time I go to sleep, what time I wake up, what time I walk the dogs, okay? So having a content calendar is important, especially if you think you're going to be creating content marketing as a long-term strategy. So on a macro level with a content calendar, it helps you to figure out not only when to create content, but when to promote it and when to push it out, especially if your startup is offering a product or solution that's seasonal, right? Because you don't want, let's say your startup is something related to do with summer, and then it's April 30th, and you're like, crap, haven't pushed anything out on social media, what do I do? And then you're up all night trying to push something out, quality's not great, you don't feel great about it, but you have something. Let's try and avoid that, right? So planning ahead with a content calendar. Now, on a micro level, this is about workflows and that cadence of communication with your leads and potential buyers. So again, if you are a startup with a business development team or one business development person or you, what is the cadence and follow-up with people that you are trying to sell to? Do you send them an email every 2 weeks, every month? What is that email? What are you putting in the email? Is it just a picture of your dog? Does that work? Because if it does work, then keep doing that, right? But trying to plan all this out, then plugging in the gaps with content marketing instead of just creating a bunch of stuff and then figuring out where it goes and when. So again, talking about a long-term strategy, map out as far ahead as you're comfortable doing. This reactive way of creating content works for B2C, but you will get burned out in B2B, and you're just going to end up resenting it. All right, so try and map it out long term. Lastly, the part that's really important, and I would emphasize priority on, is brainstorming. So allowing space for you to be creative and look at a different angle or perspective, right? So I talked a little bit about templates for buyer personas. Again, Google it, Bing it, and you have so many different options. But HubSpot has decided that they're going to make it a web app. That's a slightly different perspective. That's a slightly different approach. All the information is the same. The way that you do it is the same, right? So how do you, when creating content, think about a slightly different approach or a slightly different perspective to provide the information that you want to provide to your clients or customers? The inevitable truth is that content creation takes time, and the biggest hang-up is that it is time-consuming. And quality takes time. It takes time and effort, right? Now, the important thing to keep in mind, and I have this up on a Post-it note in my office, is don't let perfect be the enemy of done, right? So the original quote is with good, but I would arguably say, like, your content doesn't even have to be good. Below average, C, right? C's get degrees, so just pass, okay? Just get it out there, because having in your brain this vision of the perfect piece of content means nothing compared to a mediocre piece of content that you've already sent out and given to the client and gotten that conversation going. All right, so if you need inspiration, here's a QR code for some awesome examples. May be relevant to you, may apply to your business, may not, but they're so cool to look at. So talking a lot about content creation, earlier on I said something about evergreen content. So anybody want to venture to tell me what evergreen means? Yeah?
It never changes. It's always good.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the evergreen tree.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll come back to this tree. Y'all, I really like this tree. It's like, it looks super sturdy, it looks healthy, it's providing shade. I don't know, I'm in love with this tree. Okay, so the reason why I bring this tree up again is because I'm going to use an analogy for this, okay? When you want to plant a tree, you do a lot of hard work, you source the right tree that you want. How tall is it going to grow? How big is it going to grow? You find that tree, you decide where you're going to put it, okay? for the right soil conditions, the right amount of sun, blah, 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 blah. Then you dig that hole and you put that tree in. Do you want that tree to survive? Do you want it to be useful? If yes, you gotta take care of that tree, y'all. Right? You gotta water it, you may have to prune it. If a branch starts sticking out weird, you're gonna have to do something about it. If it needs some sort of fertilizer, you need to take care of that tree, right? But if you do that, over time, you're gonna be able to harvest the fruits of your labor, right? So let's say it's a fruit tree, it's gonna create apples. It's apple season right now, right? So do you go out and buy an apple tree every time you want apples? No. But if you plant an apple tree, you may have apples every season for you and your next generation to come, right? So the reason why I bring up that tree analogy is because repurposing your content is the secret weapon for B2B content marketing, okay? So this extends the value of each piece of content, and you can use that across your ACT framework, right? So let's say with an audience, you can use it in new geographic areas. Let's say your startup's only targeting Missouri right now. When you go to Kansas, when you go to Arkansas, when you go to Illinois, repurpose that content, especially if you're targeting or using some sort of pay-per-click advertising. If you're targeting only Missouri, the likelihood of someone seeing it in Illinois is pretty slim unless they come to Missouri and they fall within that range, and that's all your pay-per-click targeting stuff. I'm not gonna get into that. But the point here is use it, reuse it, and then reuse it again, okay? Context, you can use different channels and translate whatever content you're creating into different types of content. So let's say you made a video. There are a lot of transcription software now, right? Or AI that will just put it in text. So you have it all in text now, edit it, push it out as a blog, push it out as an article, chunk it out and take out main quotes and use it on social media. Use the audio and push it out as a podcast, or send it to a potential client who really likes podcasts, right? And then lastly is time. So with your content, revamping it, modifying it, deconstructing it, and then using it again next year, okay? Have you noticed sometimes on social media, you watch a video and you're like, oh, that's funny, that's cute. I think I've seen it before. Like, has that ever happened to you? That's because it did happen before. You saw it last year, and you saw it 3 months ago, and you saw it 6 months ago, and it just keeps making this circulation, right? But also, maybe your aunt hasn't seen it, or maybe your brother hasn't seen it, or maybe your sister hasn't seen it, right? The important thing to keep in mind is your content, when it goes out there, not everyone that you want to see it has seen it. So you may be hitting those people who are not online at the time, who are on vacation, who were not in that position at that company making those purchasing decisions before, but they are now, right? So it's a good reminder of whatever product or solution you're offering. Okay, so scaling up your startup. I know you're here because I said it's bootcamp and you think you're going to get out here like cut and fit and you'll be able to run a mile in 2 minutes, right? The bittersweet truth is that there is no silver bullet. This is just another quiver. There's another arrow in your quiver of your marketing strategies, okay? To support and complement your SEO, your pay-per-click, your email, so on and so forth. The two main things with content creation, if you're creating content, great. If you're not doing these two things, I would venture to say that you're not doing it completely. Number one is promote. You may have the best ebook in the entire world, and you may be the best solution for your client. But if you don't promote it, they're never gonna find you, okay? So even with SEO, that is a type of promotion because you're making sure that that search engine is able to find you, right? And get it into the hands that it needs to get into. The second thing is to measure and analyze. So I'm a little bit of a data geek. I love sheets of data, just like numbers and letters. And the important thing here is you wanna know what pieces of content are working, okay? You may like making videos, but if your clients don't like to watch videos, and you put out all these videos and you put all this time and effort and resources and passion, and you get 2 views, don't make any videos right now. They may be into it later. You can come back to that, or you can do it as a side gig, okay? But if you have blogs that are getting hundreds of hits and you have videos that get 2 views, to grow your business and to scale up your startup, go with what works. Look at the data, follow that, and then you can tweak and do some testing and experimentation later on. All right. So you're done. You know how to create content, right? Everybody's going to run out of here. You're all going to be great content creators. Everybody's going to be successful. But some of you may be saying, cool, this lady gave me a lot of information. Where do I start? Here are some bonus resources. All right, I'm huge in the QR codes right now, if you can't tell. The first one is an ultimate guide to B2B marketing. If you're not familiar with HubSpot, look them up. I mean, you want to talk about big hitters in content marketing. Their blog, their website is just like next level. Their goals, honestly. And then there's B2B content marketing benchmarks report, where I pulled that pie chart. So it kind of talks a little bit about the challenges that B2B content marketers are facing today, things to look out for, trends, that kind of stuff. The third one is 600 ChatGPT content marketing prompts. They're just something to get you started. And if you were here for Brian's session, you know what it can and can't do. But I would venture to say, out of the 600, I'm hoping at least one of those things are going to work for you. Give you something, at the very least, some sort of idea or distilling down information that's available online. Okay, lastly is a QR code to get a copy of this slide deck. Okay, so if you missed one of the QR codes before, or you missed something that I was saying, or you want to remember whatever, you can go ahead and scan that. It is gated, so please fill out that form, and then you'll be able to access that PDF. So again, the main takeaways, ACT framework, how to align to your business goals so that you can win, and repurposing content. And we're at the Q&A.
All right, thank you so much, Mindy. Fantastic, everybody. So Mindy asked us all in the beginning to write down the one thing that they wanted to take away from this. So that means at least some of you should have a question right at the ready. I wrote down, by the way, being new to a lot of these concepts, I wrote down understanding some basic structure or framework within which to, make sense of all this and put things in the right categories. And like the first slide was the ACT framework. So I have no further questions. Well, I do have one.
Yep.
There was a picture of you doing a yoga pose. Is that how you hurt your knee?
No, I don't know. I suspect it might be. I think I have a torn meniscus, and I don't really know how I did that. No, it's not how I injured it.
All right, who has a question?
Oh.
Mike.
Yeah, that would probably be better. I was wondering how you could get your, target market to interact more with you through your, content.
Yeah, that's a great question. So and that's the goal, right? The goal is to get them to interact with it, not just to feed your ego, although there's a little bit of that too. So I talked a little bit about promoting and using different channels to promote. So social media is one of the easy ones to look at, but I would say looking at data and analysis to kind of get some idea of the behaviors of how they're interacting with it, right? So let's say, for instance, you have a blog article on your website. Having some sort of analytics to see if people are on that page, how many people are going to that page, number one. Number two, I'm just talking metrics here, but number two, how long they're spending on that page. If it's a blog that should take 5 minutes to read and they're gone after 2 seconds, like something is up, right? So looking at that is phase one, right? Just looking at different metrics that will indicate to you whether they're interacting in a way that you want them to. If they are, then great, do more of that. If they're not, then that's when you start doing experimentation and revamping and modification, right? Sometimes it's just a rearrange of things, because if you say infographic of a solution to your problem and your infographic's all the way at the end, I don't want to scroll. I'm over it, I'm out, right? So maybe just even moving that up will help with that interaction, because let's say, for instance, you say infographic, first thing people look at is infographic. That helps with your SEO, because the people that are staying on that website for longer they're sending signals to Google that that is the information that I was looking for, and that's the information that was delivered to me, right? So then that helps with you moving up the rankings and getting more people to at least see your content, and then at that point tweaking to see how the interactions are, whether you want them to interact longer or deciding what that action item is, okay? So let's say, for instance, you have an infographic, and that is a good interaction, but that's really leading to maybe some sort of gated content or filling out a form or calling you or whatever it is, right? So I think in terms of interaction, tying it to whatever your goal is for why you're creating that content, and then figuring out what it is that you want them to do, what that behavior is. Does that help? Okay.
Other questions?
Oh.
Oh. What happened to your mic?
Oh, I think I have it. Sorry.
How do you develop in the first place a rhythm or a cadence for yourself for the actual content creation? Now, I know the content calendar for pushing it out is one thing, but just everyone has different time available, everyone has different bandwidth, everyone has different discipline levels, experience writing, all of that. How do you work out in the first place? Okay, I'm gonna record videos these days. I'm gonna chop them into social media snippets these days. I'm gonna write blogs those days. At what point do you run a business? I guess that's why there are third-person companies that do that. But if you could speak to that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because something that we talked about is that it's really time consuming, and when you're running a business, you're trying to run the business. So there are operations involved, and you're like, I gotta sit down and take a video or post on social. Like, I don't got time for that. So I would say, I can only speak for me, right, and how I do it. So I am a night owl, and I get a lot of my ideas, and I get really ramped up like 2:30. Before 2:30, I'm on coffee, and I'm functional, but I am not at top peak level efficiency, right? So for me, I have set aside time to do brainstorming from 2:30 to 3. And it's only 30 minutes, right? Because if you tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna dedicate 4 hours to doing this thing, and the thing doesn't come, then you're like, okay, I would really rather be doing accounting or cleaning the bathroom or whatever it is. So in that 30 minutes, if you come up with something, great. If you don't come up with something, that's why I prioritize brainstorming, because even if you just start doodling stuff, or at the very least doing some research, just go online and say, what are videos in my industry? And then just scroll and see what comes, right? Because that's something that AI cannot do. Actually, this is something AI can do. So ask AI, what is something that, what is a pain point for this specific industry for whatever, that's related to your solution, right? So I would say structured creative time is probably going to be the best thing. So for me, I do schedule in time, because it's always easier to cancel or duck out of that commitment than it is to say, oh, I'll schedule it later. Because it'll be 3 months from now and I will never do the later, right? So for me, that structured creative time really helps. Does that help? Okay.
Any more questions?
Does HubSpot have a free version? Hold on, one more second. Okay, does HubSpot have a free version
Of
using it?
Yeah. So HubSpot does have a free version, because they're a CRM / content management system / monster of everything, marketing, it seems. And they have some limitations on it. I would say that in terms of using it for content marketing, it's great to get started. It's like all of the other website developing platforms like Wix and Squarespace. It's really quick for you to get out of the box stuff and to get started. But if you're at a point in your, which is great for startups, but if you're at a point in your startup where you're looking to morph and grow, then you can consider looking at other platforms. But yeah, HubSpot is free to a certain extent with some limitations. Yeah. But that persona tool is free. So you can make as many personas as you want. Although I would say 2 to 3 for a company to be efficient. Anything else?
Other questions? All right.
In B2B marketing, how much should we avoid using the emotional component that we find in consumer marketing? I mean, that's still going to be there when you mention pain points. Mm-hmm. What do you think the balance is?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Also, great to see you again. That is a conversation I have a lot. I've had a lot with specifically people in sales and also my boss when I had a boss. Because there's this fine line between being professional and entertaining, being interesting and informative, right? I would say, honestly, start with the emotion first, because we are emotional beings as humans, and we help our logic kind of reins in that emotion to help make decisions, right? But at the end of the day, it's really that want and that desire within a person to either make a decision or to identify that pain point and to feel that pain, right? Before they go out and look for that solution. So I would say start with emotion in terms of when you're thinking about creating content. And then the level of emotionality in the actual content that you push out, that's where customization can come into play. Because if you're selling some sort of solution that requires a lot of interaction and contact, so if it's like not a SaaS company or a SaaS startup, then you can get a feel of that person and then kind of tailor whatever that piece of content is for them. I don't know if I'm helping here, but I would say start with emotion and then bring back based on how it's being perceived by your audience and received by your audience. Okay.
Okay, that's all. All right. Mindy, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.